I mean, I'm still very involved with the dancers because I sell to them now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they wear what makes them money. Unless there were a few acts that were real heavy S&M with whips and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and even then it would be very glamorous. Very few people ever, you know, at that time in stripping, in real stripping, it was glamour, glamour. I mean, like tight lame dresses to the floor, rhinestones. Nowadays, it's much, much looser. People
Mm-hmm.
wear practically street clothes, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which is not good for me because I like to make the other type.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about Anya Phillips?
Okay, Anya Phillips. She was a stripper. We used to strip together, and she used to bring Debbie Harry up to the theaters.
Which club was this?
This was well. She used to work most of the Follies. There was the Broadway, the Follies, the Roxy, the Honeybee, the.
These are all 42nd Street clubs?
Well, actually, the only theater that was ever on 42nd was the Roxy. Everything else, 49th Street, 29th Street. I met Anya at a go-go place because she was originally a go-go dancer, and she told me I was the reason she became a stripper, because I came in those days. You used to be able to, like a go-go club would book a stripper as a feature for the weekend and go on twice a night
Mm-hmm.
to draw people in. Because I mean, there's only one place there's even strip left in New York. It's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
But so I came in and she was just being fired, and she saw me and she just thought my costume and everything. She said, that's what I got to do. A smart stripper does what she'll get the best tips at.
Who was your favorite band?
Oh, New York Dolls, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I followed also the Magic Tramps because my old man was in that.
Who was in that besides Eric
Stilettos,
Emerson?
I like the Stilettos. Eric Emerson, Larry, Marion Youngblood. Well, I went to CBGB's the first week it was open, and Eric Emerson played there before the Ramones did.
Mm-hmm.
He really found that place. I mean, well, the two of them. I mean, they all found it. But
Mm-hmm.
there used to be a pool table. I remember the first time I saw Blondie perform there, and afterwards somebody came up and congratulated me. I had blonde hair then.
When they went disco, didn't everybody sort of hate disco? And they sort of
Yeah, well, it was a big joke. In fact, they used to call Heart of Glass the disco song. They did it a long time before they ever recorded it. They did that back in the CBGB's days. I mean, for a time, there wasn't anything. 82 Club closed down everything. And that's when CB's was just beginning to open, and there wasn't anywhere to play.
Mm-hmm.
There were like a lot of little tiny clubs and things that people would find. Oh, Stilettos were rich. Okay, they were first called the Bonsai Babes before they became Blondie. At one time, Blondie was going to call themselves Blonde Venus, because my old man was playing with them at one point.
Mm-hmm.
The Magic Tramps were considered real cool. I can't remember the Magic Tramps.
So everybody liked the whole Warhol connection then. Still, that was still the big.
Well, that was part of the game in town. You play with what there is,
Mm-hmm.
and there would be parties. Okay, the situation was Eric Emerson was living with Barbara Winters, Edgar Winter's wife, and she had a huge, wonderful, fabulous designer loft just around the corner from Max's, and there used to be a lot of parties there. You know, like David Bowie, Alpha Cherry, and people would come to because it was like a really wonderful place to have a party.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to see a lot of those parties, and that's where my old man was living, and I'd be staying a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole connection. Eric Emerson, you know, had a child by Elda Stiletto and had a child by Jane Forth, the Annie Warhol model. And both those children, plus some other kids, John Collins' kid, they got together and made the Brattles. I don't know if you've heard about the Brattles. That's defunct now, but it was like they went on the Merv Griffin show, all sorts of stuff. It was all 10 and 12-year-olds, and they're all children of people from the scene. Eric Emerson, you know, is dead. The first story they put out was that he used to play this game when he got drunk playing like Matador with cars. And the first story they put out was he got hit by a car when he was doing that. And then, of course, it came out that he actually OD'd. Now, I saw him OD a few times. So, I mean, and like everybody couldn't believe he would OD because he was the type that didn't, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like he'd go out, turn blue, and he would still, you know, make it back. He shot up with Barbara Winters, Jane Forth, and Jane Forth's boyfriend. Not too long after that, she went into the hospital for mental problems at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know all the details about that. So there were all these nasty little rumors about that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big, right after he died, there was a big meeting. I mean, I wasn't there. This is what I heard about. Debbie Harry, Elda, because she had an affair with him supposedly. Elda, Stiletto, Jane Forth, all the girls of his life, because he had a lot, and they had a big meeting to fight over his sentimental belongings and things.
Mm-hmm. The whole CBGB thing, that was not glitter though. I mean, that was
That
a
was
change.
post glitter. I remember because I was very very into clothes. The idea was that you knew glitter wasn't what you were doing anymore, but I still into glamour, and the idea was to try to find something I could wear that was glamorous, and a lot of girls were having this problem, glamorous and everything, but still tough.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't using the word punk; it had to be tough
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So I mean, I used to wear a lot of leopard because of that, because it was still 50s. And
Mm-hmm.
see, I was lucky because I could make my own clothes, and it wasn't so hard for me to
Mm-hmm.
find stuff. And I used to wear a lot of clothes I used to call the just been raped look.
Mm-hmm.
I also went out a couple times wearing live cockroaches glued to my ears as earrings.
Anya was not stripping at that time.
At that first time, this was way, way back, but then right after that she became a stripper. Because
What did she look like when you first saw her?
She was always plump. Black hair, and she was plump. And she used to wear these great wigs. I used to love her wigs, because she would just plop them on and pin them around, and they were a mess, and they looked great.
Mm-hmm.
They always
What
be
about
a
her
mess.
clothes? What she look like?
Okay, rather 30s dressing, I'd say, because you're coming out of the glitter rock when things are 30s. And she had a plump little body. And then when she started making her clothes, I mean, she used to come over to my house. Like, what she really wanted me to do was teach her, I mean, when I knew her, she didn't really know how to sew.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted me to teach her how to sew, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And she came over to my house, and she said, this is the dress I want to make. And she drew it out, and I said, well, this is, and I cut it out for her, and then I told her how to sew it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would go on from there. And I made her a few costumes way back in the beginning for her to strip out of, gold beaded things and stuff. She used the name China Doll. I've never in my life done drugs. I don't even drink.
Mm-hmm.
Anya didn't do much drugs. I mean, she used to do LSD. She liked LSD.
Mm-hmm.
One time she crawled into a closet, and then who else was with her? And then they crawled out of the closet. They crawled all the way down. They were living in Fifth Avenue, and they crawled all the way down into the street and hailed a cab and crawled into the cab and told the cab to take them to Cuba. And they were just really fucked up. But I wouldn't say smack was one of hers. But on the other hand, I mean, at that time is what I'm saying.
Oh, right. Well, later on.
Yeah, who knows what. She was the first person I ever had as a friend that died, and died a long death.
Mm-hmm.
And what can you say except I'm your friend? You can't talk about the weather. You can't say how you doing. What did you see on have you been out? You can't say anything. And that's
were you friendly with her when she was in the hospital?
Yeah.
Well,
She wouldn't even let me come. She would not let me come visit. What happened was she got all this. She really did the benefit, not so much for the money. It was at Bonds, but so James Chance would have a really good showcase. Blondie was there. Chic was there. All these people were there.
And she was ill at this time.
And she was ill. This was about 4 or 5 months before she died. Maybe 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, talking about what they did. So all these people, and then they started infighting. And then somebody threw a drink on Anya. She got drunk, and they were trying to throw a drink on someone else, and they threw it right on Anya. And this is her night and everything. And then Natasha pulled this bullshit, because she was in the thing too. Because when she found, I was in it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 spots to go on because we always do a change, and we sing our songs and everything, so we want to have time to change. And I went on near the beginning and then in the middle. And Natasha was supposed to go on very last. And she said, either you change places with Animal, change me places, or I won't go on because I don't want to go on last.
Right.
And of course, I didn't want to go on last because that was going to be 3 or 4 in the morning.
Right.
And I was saying, I'm not going to go on last, make her go on last. And then I all of a sudden saw Anya, and she was getting really upset. And people were shouting back and forth, and she's standing there. She's very short, And people were shouting over her, so I said, finally, go ahead, go on last. I mean, go on, take my place. I don't
Right.
care.
Right.
You know, and Debbie Harry was on stage with James Chance and with Chic and everything. The big moment Anya worked for, and she was crying. She was in my arms crying backstage. And that was the last time we talked physically to each other. I mean, we talked on the phone other times.
Had she lost a lot of weight at this
She
time?
was so skinny. She looked fabulous. She was so skinny because she was always plump.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked really good. And I remember her crying to me that she didn't mind the dying, but she didn't like the pain and being in the hospital. And supposedly the way she died, and you have to talk to James to find out if this is the truth of what I heard, she was on a treatment where they had a little box in the back of her neck, so she didn't have to be in the hospital. She could go home and be at home and come back. And she supposedly disconnected her box so she could die at home, and she did die at home. I'm the first person I'm aware of that was really performing to tapes. And Klaus Nomi started doing it, and then other people started doing it.
What did you think of Klaus?
I flipped out. The first time I saw him, it was at the New Wave Vaudeville show. I first thought it was a record he was miming to. I couldn't believe it. It was so fabulous. And it was a record that he was singing to. And it was just so great, and I thought he was wonderful. If there's a hot party like the Nina Hagen party, I go with it too.
What about Jean-Michel? Did you ever meet him?
Can't think of the name.
Jean-Michel Basquiat?
Oh, I know who that is.
He did the Mike Todman paintings.
Yeah.
He used to be at the Mike Club all the
Yeah.
time.
Then I know I met him, but we weren't friends to say. Or on the other hand, sometimes I find out someone I was hanging with and thinking was real fun to be with, and then you forget about them, and then you run into them and you say, "Hey, they're doing this." Like when I first saw that Keith was doing stuff, I'm going, "Hey, that was that kid I used to hang out." Like. When Keith was first making it, I was saying, no, Kenny should make it, not Keith. So Kenny making it too made me real happy.
Right.
But Keith was getting all the publicity.
What do you think about John Sex? We haven't talked about him.
Oh, he's fun. I used to make some clothes for us.
Right.
John Sex is what I call a professional party goer. Serinda Fox is one. James St. James is one. Diane Brill is one.